In the silence of a high-tech laboratory or the stillness of a deep meditative state, there is a recurring anomaly that scientists once dismissed as biological noise. A glitch in the human machine that seemed to serve no purpose other than to signal failure. They thought it was a mistake, a drop in cognitive efficiency, a sudden surge of cortisol, or a lapse in memory, but they were wrong. It wasn't a mistake. It was a masterpiece of evolutionary engineering. Welcome to MindSpark Science, where today we are decoding the most profound errors of the human experience. Imagine your brain as a hyper-complex bioelectrical grid, processing roughly 11 million bits of information every single second. Yet, your conscious mind only perceives about 40 to 50 of those bits. This massive discrepancy, this loss of data, was long considered a limitation of our biological hardware. We lamented our inability to see the infrared, to hear the subsonic, or to remember every face we passed on the street. But as we dive deeper into the realms of neuroplasticity and quantum cognition, we begin to realize that our limitations are not walls. They are filters designed for survival. What we call a mistake in our perception is often the brain's way of optimizing its energy consumption. Think of the brain's energy budget as a finite resource, much like a battery operating at a constant voltage. To maintain the delicate homeostasis of the prefrontal cortex, the brain must ruthlessly prune unnecessary signals. When you experience burnout or a mental fog, your system isn't breaking down. It is implementing a protective shutdown. In neurobiology, we call this a refractory period on a macro scale. It is the system saying that the current signal-to-noise ratio is unsustainable. If your brain did not fail in this way, the sheer volume of sensory input would lead to excitotoxicity, literally burning out your neurons through overstimulation. This brings us to the fascinating concept of predictive coding. Your brain does not actually see the world as it is. It sees a hallucination that is constrained by sensory data. It makes a guess, and when the guess is wrong, we feel a sense of confusion or error. For decades, psychologists viewed these cognitive biases as flaws in human logic. However, new research suggests these errors are actually Bayesian inferences, mathematical shortcuts that allow us to make split-second decisions in life or death situations. If you see a shape in the shadows and your heart races and it turns out to be just a tree, your brain didn't make a mistake. It ran a survival simulation where the cost of a false positive is 0, but the cost of a false negative is death. This is the quantum nature of thought, existing in multiple states of possibility until the moment of action collapses the wave function into a single reality. We often view stress as the enemy of performance, a glitch in our modern lives that stems from an ancient part of the brain called the amygdala. But consider the challenge state versus the threat state in psychology. When the body increases heart rate and dilates pupils, it is prepping the system for a surge of oxygen. The mistake isn't the stress. The mistake is our interpretation of it. When we reframe this physiological error as an upgrade, our neurochemistry shifts from producing cortisol to producing DHEA, a steroid that aids in brain repair and neurogenesis. This is the ultimate twist of our biology. The very sensations we spend our lives trying to suppress are the tools designed to elevate us. We see this in the phenomenon of synaptic pruning. During adolescence, the brain deletes billions of connections. To an outside observer, it looks like the brain is losing its capacity. In reality, it is becoming a specialized, high-speed processor. It is sacrificing the noise of infinite potential for the signal of expert execution. This leads us to a profound philosophical realization. Perfection in a biological system is not the absence of error, but the mastery of it. Your weakness, that moment you feel overwhelmed or less than, is actually your neuroplasticity in action, signaling that the current mental model is no longer sufficient and a new, more complex one is being built in its place. You are not a static machine. You are a dynamic, self-correcting energy network. Every time you feel like you've hit a limit, remember that the limit is the catalyst for the next leap in your cognitive evolution. The glitch is the gateway. To understand this further, we must look at the thermodynamic cost of consciousness. The brain occupies only 2% of body mass but consumes 20% of its total energy. Every thought is a literal expenditure of ATP. If the brain did not possess mistakes, like forgetting or habituation, it would succumb to heat death. Forgetting is not a failure of storage. It is an active metabolic process. It is the removal of low-priority data to ensure the high-priority data remains accessible. When you forget where you put your keys, it is because your brain decided that the structural integrity of your long-term memories, the things that define your identity, was more important than the temporary spatial coordinate of a metal object. This is a strategic retreat, not a defeat. Furthermore, let's explore the concept of noise-enhanced processing or stochastic resonance. In physics, adding a bit of random noise to a weak signal can actually make the signal easier to detect. Our nervous system uses this exact principle. The static we feel when we are anxious or hyper-aware is often the system boosting its sensitivity. If the world were perfectly clear, we would become blind to the subtle shifts in our environment. We need the noise to see the signal. In the realm of quantum thought, we consider the ORC or theory, orchestrated objective reduction. If consciousness arises from quantum vibrations in microtubules within neurons, then what we perceive as mental fluctuations might actually be the interface between our biology and the fundamental fabric of reality. Your moments of indecision, those agonizing pauses where you feel stuck, are the moments where your brain is scanning a multiverse of possibilities. It is the superposition of thought. Scientists used to think this hesitation was a sign of a weak will. Now we understand it as the most sophisticated computational state achievable by any known matter in the universe. We must also address the biological imperfection of sleep. For centuries, philosophers viewed sleep as a little death, a waste of productive time. But we now know that during the REM and deep sleep stages, the brain undergoes a glymphatic cleaning process. It flushes out neurotoxic waste products like beta amyloid. Without this downtime, our cognitive machinery would seize up within days. The mistake wasn't being vulnerable while we slept. The mistake was thinking we could ever function without that vulnerability. This brings us back to the heart of the human condition. The struggle for control. We try to control our emotions, our heart rates, our fears. But the autonomous nervous system is autonomous for a reason. It is a legacy of 4 billion years of evolution. It knows when to trigger the freeze response, not because you are a coward, but because in the ancestral environment, remaining motionless was the only way to avoid a predator's motion-sensing vision. Your paralyzing fear is actually a high-level camouflage tactic embedded in your DNA. When we look at the neurochemistry of flow states, we see the temporary deactivation of the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. This part of the brain is responsible for self-criticism and the sense of time. When it shuts down, we perform at our peak. For a long time, this was seen as a loss of executive function. In reality, it removes the inner critic, letting the subconscious, a faster, parallel processor, take the wheel. This loss of self is actually the gain of total efficiency. The I that you think you are is often the bottleneck. By failing to maintain the ego, the brain succeeds in mastering the task. Consider also the role of mutations in DNA. Without these genetic copying errors, there would be no evolution. We would still be single-celled organisms in a primordial soup. Every advancement in life began as a mistake in the genetic code. Your very existence is the result of a billion-year chain of successful errors. This is the philosophy of the antifragile, a system that doesn't just withstand shocks, but actually gets stronger because of them. Your brain is the most antifragile object in the known universe. It requires the stress of learning, the pain of discipline, and the error of failure to forge new neural pathways. Without the friction of mistake, there is no growth. We are often taught that a healthy mind is a calm mind, but neuroscience suggests that a vibrant mind is a chaotic one. High-entropy brain states are associated with creativity and higher intelligence. The chaos you feel when brainstorming isn't a lack of organization. It's a higher form of organization that hasn't yet settled into a pattern. It is the edge of chaos where the most complex information processing occurs. If you were perfectly orderly, you would be a computer. Because you are messy, you are a creator. Let's extend this to the placebo effect. For years, medicine treated the placebo effect as a nuisance, a mistake in clinical trials. But look closer. The placebo effect is the brain's ability to manufacture its own pharmacy. It is the manifestation of thought into biology. If your brain can heal the body simply because it believes it is receiving medicine, that isn't a flaw in the study. It is a testament to the sovereign power of your neurochemistry. It proves that your perception of reality can dictate the physical state of your cells. We have spent so long looking for the mistake in the data that we miss the miracle of the processor. As we move into an era of artificial intelligence and neural interfaces, the question of what makes us human becomes more pressing. It doesn't make the kind of mistakes we do. It doesn't get tired, it doesn't get distracted. It doesn't feel the weight of an existential crisis. But it also doesn't have the flash of insight that comes from a misfiring neuron connecting two unrelated ideas. That misfire is the source of all art, all poetry, and all scientific breakthroughs. Archimedes didn't find his principle through a logical step-by-step process. He found it in a moment of relaxation in a bathtub. His brain was failing to focus on the math and instead allowed sensory input to trigger a lateral connection. The mistake of the distracted mind is the birth of the eureka moment. We must learn to trust the rhythm of our own biology. The cycles of high focus and deep fatigue, the waves of confidence and the troughs of doubt, these are not signs of a broken system. They are the oscillations of a finely tuned instrument. Think of a violin string. It must have tension to produce a note. But if the tension is constant and never released, the string eventually snaps. The relaxation of the string isn't a failure to be tense. It is the necessary counterpart to the music. Your life is the music, and your errors are the pauses between the notes that give the melody its meaning. In the final analysis, we find that the universe itself is built on a series of mistakes. The slight asymmetry in the Big Bang, the 1 in a billion preference for matter over antimatter, is the only reason anything exists at all. If the universe had been perfectly symmetrical, matter and antimatter would have annihilated each other instantly, leaving nothing but light. You exist because of an original cosmic glitch. So, the next time you feel like you've made a mistake, or that you aren't optimized enough, or that your brain is working against you, take a deep breath and look at the data. Your anxiety is a sentinel. Your fatigue is a guardian. Your confusion is a prelude to a new level of understanding. They thought it was a mistake, but it was the plan all along. You are a biological system that has spent eons learning how to fail successfully. You are the product of a quantum dance that thrives on uncertainty. The more we learn about the mind, the more we realize that our flaws are actually our most advanced features. They are the secret codes written in margins of our evolution. As we close this chapter of MindSpark Science, I want you to reconsider your own glitch. Is it really a weakness, or is it a signal you haven't learned to read yet? The bridge between the known and the unknown is paved with the very things we once tried to fix. Your brain is not a computer to be programmed. It is a garden to be cultivated, and even the weeds have a purpose in the ecology of your soul. If you found yourself questioning your own limits during this exploration, then the signal has reached its destination. We invite you to delve deeper into the mysteries of the mind with us. If this scientific journey resonated with your intellectual curiosity, ensure you strike the like button and subscribe to MindSpark Science. Our mission is to transform the way you perceive your internal universe. What mistake in your life might actually be a hidden optimization? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's start a dialogue that bridges the gap between science and philosophy. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and remember, the system isn't broken, it's evolving. Stay sparked.